What's your name?
Dimitri.
Dimitri. So, what are your views on animal cruelty? I'm assuming you're against it.
Of course.
Now, do you think that you bear responsibility when you purchase meat? Like you bear the responsibility of what happens to the animal when you purchase meat, or?
I mean, I think our purchases dictate the broader macro level markets, right? So what we buy is basically going to be telling corporations or the economy on that macro level exactly what to keep doing, right? What to keep selling. So in that sense, yes, but I also think that sometimes I'm hungry and want to eat something, you know? So it's not
Yeah.
always a conscious thought, you know?
Okay, so now let me ask you this. If you pay someone to kill a human, you're responsible for that process, right? So, do you think it's the same responsibility that you have if you pay someone to kill a human as if you're paying someone to kill an animal?
That's an interesting question. I mean, so framing it that way would basically mean I would say, oh, hey, I'm going to pay you $100. I want you to go kill a cow, bring it back so I could eat it, right? That would be the equivalent, right? That's an interesting question. I mean,
Because even if you're not doing the act, you're still paying someone knowing that you're directly asking.
I guess the difference there is if you pay someone to kill a human, you're not going to eat the human, right? And
Okay,
if you pay someone to kill an animal, it's for sustenance, it's for life.
not always. I mean, sometimes it's pleasure.
That's true. And if it were for pleasure, then I would say it's 100% wrong. Now, if it's for sustenance, if it's for survival, I don't think it's wrong.
Would you say the same thing about doing it to a human?
No, because we don't really eat humans, you know?
If we did, would it be okay?
I mean, in that framing, let's say we're stranded on an island, and I mean, that cliche example, right? But if it's survival in that case, then I suppose I would have to.
Now, let me ask you this, because I know we're veering off of like the responsibility aspect of it, but do you think that we necessarily need meat to survive?
No, I don't think it's a necessity to survive, right? But I do think that it is what has allowed us to survive up until this point.
Okay, but so you don't think it's necessary to survive? You just think it can be for survival. But that's the same with eating humans.
Well, that's not exactly what I'm saying. What I mean is, I think now we have the technology available to have alternatives to meat, right? But that's a very recent thing in the time span of humans, right? So I think it was it was probably the only thing that would allow us to get to this point was to have meat. Now we're at a point where the conversation could change, just like we're having now, because I do agree that there are things available that provide alternative nutrition, right? But I do think it was absolutely necessary to get us to the point we're at now.
I might agree with you. Now, considering that where we're at now is we don't need it, right? I mean, even though it might not taste as good, or maybe there's less options for people, and it might be harder for people who have like illnesses. Harder doesn't mean you can't do it. I still think that there's some sort of moral obligation to do it. Now, okay, let's go back to what we were talking about before about bearing responsibility, the fact that it's not necessary. Now, forgetting about that we've been eating meat for thousands of years, and we're just talking about now, if it's not necessary, it doesn't mean it's not. It doesn't mean that it's immoral because of that. But if we can choose to just eat vegan, you would say that's probably a more moral thing to do.
Not necessarily, no. I think the moral thing to do would be well, at least in my opinion, right? And it's subjective. So I very much understand your perspective completely, and it's valid. But where I'm coming from, I think the moral choice that we have is, in my opinion, not whether to eat meat or not. But if you are going to eat meat, it's what meat are you eating, right? Are these animals that you're going to consume humanely treated? Are they, I think that there are, like for instance, I'm somebody who I do eat meat, not a lot, but when I do eat meat, I try to eat good quality meat that is not just packed into cages. I've seen these terrible, terrible things, that terrible treatment of animals, and that's something that I think is completely immoral. But I don't think the simple act of eating meat itself is immoral. I don't think that's immoral.
I agree. I mean, I think it matters how they're dying. Because I think like this, I mean, we're kind of going off, but if these animals die naturally and we want to eat them, I think that's perfectly fine. That's how I feel about it. Maybe not other vegans feel about that. However, the fact that we're taking their lives when they willfully want to live, they experience pain, they experience suffering, and they have like a pretty like long life
Right.
compared to like
Absolutely, I believe
I mean, if it was, yeah, even that, like, they have desires.
Yeah.
So, what is it about animals that makes it? I mean, do you think it's justified? What about animals makes it justified?
I mean, I think it's the cycle of life, right? If you look at
So there's nothing about animals. It's just the
well, let me expand on
external.
that. So when I say the cycle of life, what I mean is, yeah, plants are alive, right? Plants are alive. Trees communicate. Root systems, there's so. I mean, you can explore this from so many different angles and perspectives, but I'm not a very religious person, but I'm a spiritual person, and I think that we are all sort of connected in different ways, and I think we are on this earth, right? We have the available resources that are here, and that's it. That's all we have, and so when it comes down to the morality of it, I do think that's very subjective. I mean, I think there are clear rights and wrongs, but I think those rights and wrongs differ. And so when it comes down to, you can make that argument for eating plants, saying they're alive too. I think for me, the morals lie more in, our purchasing, what we purchase is very important. And I think I can see the argument of, hey, we are voting with our dollars. We're voting for what we want for the next generation and then on. But for me, it's really about the treatment, and it's okay. If I'm going to eat meat, how do we do it in a way that is the best possible? I guess.
Now, you mentioned circle of life.
Yeah.
What do you mean by circle of life?
So what I mean by that is essentially, we're here, we're born, we eat, the things we consume go back into the earth. We die, we go back into the earth. Right? It's this collective of people, and generationally, as we go on, we evolve, we change, but we're all made of the same stuff. And I think. For me, when I look at eating meat, I don't look at it as an immoral thing. I look at it as it's part of nature. It's part of us, humanity. It's how we've come so far, and it has been a necessary thing. Now, what you're saying before is really interesting with the fact that now that we have alternative options, I do think that the conversation should be had, right? But those conversations, in my opinion, should be how do we treat these animals in a better way.
So, do you think that the way something naturally happens is a good justification?
No, I don't think we need a justification, in my opinion, because I don't think eating meat's immoral.
What then? Okay, so do you think that it's worse to torture a being or to kill it?
I would say torture.
Okay.
Because, well, I'll tell you why. Because torturing is a deliberate act. Killing is not always.
Okay. I mean, I'm just trying to understand. Like, you're saying like I'm trying to figure out what justifies, on your view, killing animals for food.
Well, I want to ask you, why do I need to justify it?
Because there's a being involved.
Right. And I understand that. I mean,
What you wouldn't justify killing a rock if there was no being involved. You wouldn't justify killing a plant because there's like what justifies killing a being, or
I asked why would I need to justify that if I don't believe that it's immoral to eat meat? Yeah, jump in.
Because for things like for other things that we do to animals, let's say except eating meat, we actually want a justification for it. Typically, let's say if you kick a dog, if you take if whether it be like either other sexual things as well. Because for all other types of behaviors that we typically want a justification for, but for some reason we stop it at the meat.
I'll tell you. It does, and what I would say to that is it comes down to intention. And I think if you kick a dog, it comes down to intention. If you kick a dog, your intention is obviously fucked, right? It's bad. It's a bad intention if you go.
what if you have good intention?
I mean, no.
That doesn't change anything?
No, but there's no way to rationalize having a good intention than kicking a dog, right? Now, okay, well, to your point, to speak to that, okay, let's say the dog was attacking you and you have to kick it to get off, right?
No. I mean, even if it's like not attacking you, but your intentions are good, you don't want this animal to feel pain. You don't want this animal to suffer, but you still do it.
Right. Well, then the intention is not to cause harm. The intention, right? That's what I'm saying. It comes down to intention. If the intention is to cause harm, if the intention is to hurt, cause pain, if the intention is for your own personal gain, if it's, oh, you think it's funny, like, when I say intention, I mean whatever justification, like you were saying before, I think the justification, it's tied in with the intention, right? And so if the intention is to survive by eating meat, that's a very.
But we can just eat plants. Like I don't understand because it's not necessary, and that, but you don't think it's more.
Because like even in the kid scenario, when there's a kid, he may not have the intentions to cause harm, but he doesn't know any better. But we still call that behavior wrong, and we would want a reason for it. Even you don't think?
Well, see, I wouldn't say the behavior itself is wrong. I would say the behavior is uninformed, right? I think what it is it's naivete. And so really what you would do in that situation, what I would do is you'd just teach the kid, explain to that child why it's wrong, you know?
I mean, yeah, I'm just like, I was writing questions.
No, that's awesome, yeah.
All right, so
I'm enjoying this.
all right, so repeat that one more time. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I think when with the scenario with the kid kicking a dog, I don't think that
the informed.
yeah, informed exactly. Intention and information is necessary to consider, and so in that case, you educate, you teach the child why that's not a good thing, right? And now if the kid goes and kicks the dog again, then it's of course it's wrong. But I think intention has to be taken into account, and so the initial example of the equivalent of, oh, we pay someone to kill a human, we pay someone to kill an animal. I think the real distinction that has to be made there is intention.
Okay. So for the kid scenario, what are we informing the kid about?
We are informing the kid that
Because my
actions
answer
have consequences.
my answer would be the thing that we would be informing the kid is that he's doing something wrong.
I wouldn't frame it like that though. I would explain the why, right? I would explain why. Because you could tell a kid, hey, don't do that, that's bad, but they're not going to understand. And so I think what's important here is to explain why that's bad, right?
Oh yeah. But you can have the explanation as to why it's bad, but they can also still do something bad.
Right, absolutely.
So those two things exist together. That's kind of what I'm saying. Like there might be an extra layer that you might add the explanation.
Right.
But there's the layer that I think which is the important one, because we wouldn't the kid if he doesn't know any better kicks a rock, and nobody really cares.
Right.
But switch the rock for a dog,
Right.
we start caring.
Right.
The reason why is because we're judging it as bad.
Right.
What do you think about it?
Oh yeah, no, I agree. Makes sense.
Okay, cool. Here's another thought. I'm going from a different line of reasoning from him. So presumably you think it wouldn't be okay for me to discriminate against you, right? Let's say whether whether you're Hispanic, whether you're Asian, you're black, white.
We should never be judged for the things you have no control over.
Right. Okay. Right. Because if I was in your position, presumably I wouldn't want to be treated as such. However, this same question we can apply to animals for whenever we kill them for food, right? Because animals can't really control the way that they are.